Dr. Bernstein, we had a fair number of questions from parents who need help handling violent outbursts.
Hmm.
One mom asks, how can I redirect my child when they are screaming and swearing and hitting and throwing things at me?
Hmm. I mean, look, there are times I've had families come in where the police are called, when it's really bad, when it's a real sustained, people are at risk of being hurt. I think those are really reserved for extreme cases because I've often heard reports that when, the police come, it settles people down. And then there's times where they'll say, well, work on parenting your kid. And I don't know that that's always fair if your child has, some struggles that struggle with peace. But I continue to believe in calm, firm, non-controlling. I think that it's like Indianapolis 500. I don't follow racing, but there's a pace car, right? Every race starts with a pace car. And when the parents can do their best to not unwittingly fuel the child by staying calm, firm, and non-controlling, leading with empathy, it really helps cool down that amygdala, okay, that reacting brain. I see you're really upset. Looks like you're really angry. I hear you. And then gently and ever so gently and calmly to make a statement. I'm here to listen. You don't ever listen. I hate, I get it. I hear you're really frustrated. And then slowing down your tone, just like Indianapolis, like that pace car. You stay. If your child revs up and starts, accelerating down the track, your job is to stay that pace at 15, 20 miles an hour. And you say something like, wouldn't you agree that a calm, constructive conversation is probably going to help both of us so that we can both feel a little like we're getting further along, so we can both manage this, so that I can try to help you even more. So you state a positive willingness and you envision yourself as that pace car. Again, I wish I had magic, but that's the closest thing that I can offer to it.
Well, I think that's a really helpful metaphor there to keep in mind, the pace car. Yeah, thank you for that. We had a lot of questions about helping kids and a lot of teenagers with ADHD who are defiant in getting various kinds of help, who are very opposed to help. So one of the common subjects people asked about are kids who are floundering academically, but they are really resistant to any kind of advice or help or guidance from parents or outside sources. So any advice about how to help with that?
Well, by the way, if I had to give, what's a third most important skill for life, right? So you've heard me say, today, calming down, solving problems, and kind of solving problems is asking for help. But I'd put asking for help as a third category. We're at an age where we look things up on Google University, look it up. But I think when kids can approach a teacher, that teacher can get to know them, or a professor for an older child, and really kind of get that one-to-one and get that support. And I think we need to really let them know in advance what could be the obstacles for asking for help, and ask gentle questions. Are you worried that if you ask for help, that, the teacher is going to maybe snap at you and say, hey, didn't you read that chapter? Or how, I thought I just went over that. Is that and you're not saying that that's necessarily going to happen, but, if the child is not giving you anything, then throw some spaghetti on their wall, on their refrigerator, wet spaghetti, and see what sticks. So it might be, are you worried that the teacher will have a negative reaction? Are you worried that your friends could find out and you would feel less than? Are you worried that, you're letting me down as your parent, us down as your parent? And, try to name it. And the more you name it, I know this is going to sound corny, but the more you may tame it. Name it to tame it. So name these kind of opposing, resistant forces, normalize them. Say, hey, look, it's hard. It's hard to ask for help for a lot of people. I get it. And maybe even give a little, anecdote about how you struggled as a parent to ask for help or others, and then how much better you felt. So I think when you kind of present it that way, you make it a calm, constructive conversation versus how come you're not asking for help, power struggle.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful. Um, this is similar, in a similar vein, but rather than academic help, there's a lot of parents who feel like their child or teenager would benefit from working with a therapist or a counselor to work through maybe some comorbidities or other issues. But again, their child or teen is very opposed to this idea. Is there a way to, convince them? Or will these kind of endeavors meet a lot of resistance? What's a useful angle of approach you can recommend?
Every once in a while, and it's very rare, a parent will pull up to my office and the kid won't get out of the car. It's rare. I mean, most of the people that come here, the kids are willing to be here. But first thing is, when you tell your child that you're going to go to talk to somebody, please don't say, we're taking you to a doctor or we're taking you to a therapist. I think a really good approach is a collaborative approach. And if I had another word that I would want everybody to consider for today, when you feel stuck in your role trying to help and guide kids that are reactive and defiant, it would be collaborative. So it might be like, there's some things we're doing well, things I'm doing well as your mom, as your dad, and there's things that I think we could do better. And we'd like to go talk to somebody. And if you don't want to talk, that's fine. You can just sit there. Bring your phone. This is how I would present it. I'm not saying this is right, but and I've had so many times where parents will come in, and just even doing that, the kids are much more open to it. And then if a child, doesn't want to talk, then I'll just talk, about them in a respectful way to their parents while they're sitting there. And it's amazing, right? So many kids, once their parents are talking to them, will start talking. So that's really important. And for the heavy lifting, by the way, for the kids that are really resistant, here is, I don't know if you all can see Rocky down there, but that's Rocky, my dog. That's my little counseling area, but that's Rocky. And he provides a very affirming, calm vibe as well. But on a serious note, I think the more you make it collaborative, the less you pathologize it, the less you make it a tense type thing and make it, this is what families do. And I mean, I don't lie. I am a child psychologist, but I'd say, I'm also a coach, and make it more of a coaching model, emphasized positive psychology model versus we're going in for you to get fixed.
Yes, that's great advice. A small but seems like very important shift in the approach. Some of our viewers are like the idea of a safe word, but want some more details about how exactly to employ that. What happens when your child says that safe word? What's happens next?
I think at that point, you can try different things. It depends on the age of the child and the personality of the child. I think the go-to intervention at that point, if the child says the face word, or sometimes it can even be a gesture. I know they do these in classrooms. It could be a certain, type of hand signal, touching the ear, touching the forehead, or it could be a safe word like banana or grapefruit. And then at that point, I think the best way for it is take a break. It's a time to take a break. Younger children sometimes benefit from having a calm down corner in the house. It could be a desk in the living room or off in the den if you have a den, or some separate little area where they can color, they can draw, tons of fidgets, and just kind of have a time to chill out. So I think a safe word primarily linked to take a break is a way, but it's easier to use that safe word instead of asking kids to say, I need to take a break or I need a break, which is another thing to work up to too. Or wouldn't you agree that it's good right now? We're both upset. Let's take a break. So I think that's how That's what I would do. Let me add one other point to that. I think when parents are frustrated, and this is on the handout, on the Soundbites handout, being able to say something to coach your child through modeling. Sarah, there's a part of me right now that wants to yell or keep yelling and ground you and take this away. But I don't think that's going to help you or me. How about we take a break? I think I'm not answering, I'm leaving the idea of a safe word, but I'm also moving to that as parents, we want to model to our kids problem solving in real time and calming down in real time and making a better choice in real time. And I think that's a really good thing to teach them as well. But the safe word can help us get there.
So building on that, we have a question from a parent who says, my child and I both have ADHD. How do I help my defiant ADHD child without losing myself into the abyss of ADHD deregulation? So obviously a lot of the techniques that you've already described are going to apply, but are there any specific considerations that come to mind in your work for parents who are dysregulated with ADHD, dealing with also very defiant children? Any words of advice you can offer to that situation?
I mean, with my own children, and it hasn't been totally sunshine and rainbows. I mean, I'm grateful to say that I have a close relationship with all three, but there's still challenging times. Our emotions can get the best of us. There's things that come up. There's misunderstandings, right? We're all human. But I think one of the things that parents can do is reflect on their victories. I was really detailing this, when I hit that slide on the importance of letting our kids know when they're making good choices. I think, there were times I would keep on my notes app on my phone or a list of, hey, situations that I felt like I handled pretty well with the kids, where I started to go south and I righted my own ship. And I think the more that parents, especially, if you have ADHD and you're scared that you're not going to be able to regulate and you're going to go down that abyss, I like that word. How about identify your successes and build on them? I think that'll raise your confidence. I think that'll help you going forward. So that to me is, in addition to, of course, taking deep breaths, using the sound bites on the handout, entitled sound bites. I think that's how I would address it. And look, I mean, then there's more, complicated cases where somebody may benefit from perhaps getting evaluated for medication or making changes in their life if they are in a relationship that's really toxic and problematic. So I don't want to oversimplify the answer, but I can't see a downside to trying to record as parents when we're actually making good choices and regulating our own emotions and feeling good about it to allow ourselves to get recharged and more optimistic.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Some of our readers and viewers are asking about pathological demand avoidance. How do you distinguish between ODD versus pathological demand avoidance? Where does it fit in? And does it change these recommendations at all or not?
Yeah, the most ethical answer I can give you is I don't consider myself an expert on pathological demand avoidance. I've tried looking it up. I don't think it's a DSM-5, but I think, like in a diagnostic manual of but I know it's a term that a lot of people have been using. I mean, I still think I've had kids that, parents had said that they think this diagnosis fits of pathological demand avoidance, and the empathy and pointing out their strengths and basking in the victories has really helped. I've also had a lot of kids that fit this type of profile of pathological demand avoidance, where for example, when they're shutting down at school, when the parents can have the child meet with the teacher, with the parent there, particularly for younger children, even up till, 12, 13, preteens, teens, and really kind of create a connection with this authority figure that they might feel intimidated by. I think that can help. Now, if the pathological demand avoidance has some underlying depression or anxiety, then obviously an evaluation by a psychiatrist, as well as any mental health professional, might be really a good thing to consider as well. Again, I don't consider myself an expert on that. I need and want to learn more about it, though.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thinking about a broader context and network for our children, we have some viewers who are asking, how do you help other adults, such as coaches or grandparents? How do you help them help your child by using this kind of approach? And the flip side of that is, how do you coach your child or prepare your child for interactions with peers or other people who are not willing to use these kind of techniques? Um, yeah.
Hmm. Well, like I know, like I might have kids in my office um, where there might be a certain trigger for them. For example, I've had some kids that on the sports field in baseball, for example, if they strike out, they get really angry. They throw the bat. I had one older teen curse out a umpire. And, it didn't go over well. So I tried to kind of take a look at some of the triggers, what it represented, um, and also to kind of help them see that, okay, if they're having problems here, where are they holding it together when compared to peers who are struggling? So kind of flipping it around a little bit. And if a child sees peers who are struggling, reinforcing to them, not in a shaming way, hey, it's really good that you've risen above this, or this isn't a challenge for you. And then helping them get in touch with challenges that they do have so that hopefully they can have empathy for this child who is struggling. And then obviously, sometimes kids have to disconnect and kind of shift their peer group when there's kids who are more ensnared, let's say, in physicality or reactive behavior, or kids who say things that are going beyond little ribbing and teasing to being cruel. So really having really good conversations, I think, with your child about who they want to hang out with, what they're getting from these relationships, and teaching them that some people have different limitations that they're going through at different times. And then for kids, also using their school counselor as a resource if they're observing struggles in some of these, some of their peers, and maybe telling in confidence the school counselor so it can get followed up.
Okay. Thank you. We have a viewer with an 18-year-old who says, my 18-year-old son is defiant, doesn't do his schoolwork or help the family with chores or otherwise. I am worried that I have so little time left with him to make a difference. I know, Dr. Bernstein, that you also work with parents of adult children as well. So do you have advice for someone with a teenager and they feel their time is dwindling to make a positive impact or to repair a relationship that's so important to them?
I think that it's amazing how quickly we can move in the repair stage if we really speak from our heart and if we listen and we reflect and we lead with validating. And I think it's really important for parents to manage their own anxiety. I appreciate this person who wrote this in because they're being very real. But sometimes as parents, we feel like our kids have to go at a certain schedule. You look on Facebook and you see the graduation pictures and you feel like you have to keep up. Some kids do better taking a year off, a gap year. Excuse me, I've had kids go to AmeriCorps for a year, community college instead of quote unquote regular college, going into a trade. So realizing that for some kids, their path may be a little more circuitous, not as straight and direct, and that's okay. Taking some of the pressure off, I think, as parents can often bring down some of that tension and anxiety, and I think the kids pick up on it. So I would really, really encourage that you have, God willing, if you're healthy, not looking at it as the time is just extinguishing. And look, if I had a father of of a child come in once, and he gave me some great wisdom. He was talking about how most doors open both ways, right? So there's some things in life, if you have a child, if you get married, like that's a door you go through. Well, especially the child one, you have the child, you die. But most, like, okay, who wants to see college not work out? I get it. But, learning and growing mentality will help alleviate some of that anxiety, because sometimes it does take learning and growing, and we don't just get there on a straight shot. But the more that we create that emotional safety, the more that we know that our kids can call us and talk about their inner anxieties, that's really important. I'll be really quick. One of the things I always say to parents is, think about it this way. If your child's at a party, whether in college or somewhere or at high school, and stuff is going down and they're not feeling really good about it, do they feel safe to talk to you, to call you, to text you? So yeah. And by the way, that's another version of a safe word, is like, I've had kids, this is a different application of it, like parents kind of talk with their kids that if you're somewhere and there's a real problem, just text me the word apple or something, different context, and I'll come and get you, instead of feeling like you're going to create a scene by telling others you're going to leave. So.
Well, Dr. Bernstein, thank you so much. That'll have to be our last question because we're out of time, but we thank you very sincerely for joining us today and for contributing your voice to this ADHD community.